this video. I hope that my phone mic is picking up my voice decently enough. I think I have figured out that after recording a few different readings, that the soft-spoken, sometimes whispery voice is easy to maintain and probably, I would hope, somewhat soothing to listen to. And hopefully, if I do have to add rain sounds to cover up any extraneous noise from outside, then hopefully I'll be able to mix that in a decent way. I had already filmed the first chapter and the second chapter of this book, An Introduction to Astrology by Lilly. But I realized after I finished filming that there was a stain on my shirt. It was so embarrassing, and I was like, maybe I should just power through and maybe I can just, make a little joke about it and post, but no, I decided I was just going to redo it, and I think I might as well just start from the beginning. This is my little book page paperweight. I don't really know what you call them, but I found it one day at a thrift shop in town. It was in a little Ziploc bag with some other random stuff. If I remember correctly, I think one of them was a seashell. I talked about this in another video. I don't know if I've posted it yet or if I will. But oh my cat is here with me, and I'm also wearing a cat shirt. I don't know if you can see it. I would tell you that I'm not crazy about cats or cat crazy, but I think I am. So I just have to embrace and accept who I am. So this is An Introduction to Astrology by Lilly, with numerous emendations adapted to the improved state of the science. It was published in 1972 by Newcastle Publishing Company in Hollywood, California, and this copy of the book was purchased from the Occult Bookstore at 651 North State Street. 651 North State Street. In Chicago, Illinois. 60610. 60610. There's a little stain on the first page of the preface. We're just gonna have to accept it for what it is. The back of the book says, "A classic of astrology reprinted for the first time in 120 years. Wow." William Lilly, 1602 to 1681, was one of the most renowned astrologers in English history. He wrote and published many books and almanacs on astrology and prophecy. He cast horoscopes for King Charles II and predicted the Great Fire of London in 1666 so accurately that he was suspected of complicity in its origin. As a tarot reader myself and as someone who is interested in astrology, I mostly use astrology for personal exploration and reflecting on one's desires, interests, skills, talents, strengths, weaknesses. And I like to use tarot that way too, but I do get many clients who just want to know, will this happen? What will happen? When will this happen? So I can't knock it entirely, but I do think it's so funny when psychics will have that one or two or three things that they predicted accurately, as if it makes, as if it proves their ability or something like that. And I don't really find that use of these tools to be extremely useful. But besides that, it also makes me think of all of those people in history who have made countless predictions, and they are referenced to this day about what they predicted accurately. I can't remember the name of the guy that everyone knows of. Maybe he was from like the 15th century or something like that, and he made countless predictions, so of course some of them are going to come true, so it's kind of like that. However, so even though William Lilly was suspected of being complicit in the Great Fire of London in 1666, he was acquitted of the charge and later became a practicing physician, utilizing astrology in the treatment of his patients. I haven't read this book entirely yet, but you will see the way that he brings in the humors, the four humors, when talking about the signs. Astrology has been a big part of medical, Astrology has been a big part of medical science, particularly from antiquity to the Middle Ages. I can't say with any certainty that it was really that useful, but they used it and they kept going with it, so. But then again, lots of fallacious things continue to exist. In 1647, he published his Introduction to Astrology, which remains to this day one of the most comprehensive and accurate texts on the subject ever written. It lay neglected for over 200 years until a new edition was published in 1852, edited and introduced by the noted 19th century English astrologer Zadkiel. This Newcastle edition is an unabridged reprint of the 1852 edition. I'm gonna have to find a good way to read without straining my vocal cords, because it is happening. I may have to do more of a low voice like this, so that I'm not whispering as much. But I'll probably end up doing a little bit of both, we'll see. But I won't, push myself too hard. I'm just going to go bit by bit by bit through the chapters. I won't try to read all of it at once, obviously. And I think I've decided that I am going to put the uninterrupted reading of anything that I post. I think I will put that on Patreon, so that if you want the reading without the extra chatter, which I don't know why you would ever want that, because, I had so much. am thinking about doing that, so let me know if that is something that you would like. So, preface. Let me check that the camera is recording still. Yep, okay. Preface. After a lapse of 205 years since the first publication in 1647 of Lilly's Introduction to Astrology, there would be no necessity for an apology for its reappearance, were it not for the prevailing fashion of the day, which is to rail at and vituperate that science and all who dare say a word not in its favor, but in favor of examining into its merits with a view to ascertain what were the grounds on which our honest ancestors believed and strictly followed, that which we conceive only fit for ridicule. It is funny being someone who considers himself to be on the side of, the skeptic side of things, having become an atheist or agnostic when I was around 12 or 13, after being raised in the Catholic Church. And I understand things like the Barnum statements and all of that, which is true for things like daily horoscopes, but I don't know, there's just, and it is religious of me to say this because it is only going by a type of faith or confirmation bias or, whatever, but when you get really into the nitty-gritty of a natal chart and look at the aspects and everything like that, it really does just, it really, every chart is completely unique, so it's easy to see the 12 signs and disparage them in today's world of science and the practice of astrology, and that's fair. But when you start to dig a little bit deeper into it, it can be very illuminating when exploring facets of yourself, and it's something that I've always wanted to become proficient in, but I just lack the academic rigor to fully dive in and put myself into the practice. But that's a story for another day. That's my ADHD talking. So let's continue. And my ADHD literally talking. Moving forward. As I have long outlived the days when I, like many others, thought myself at liberty to laugh at and to condemn what I did not understand, the world will forgive me if I be bold enough to advise those who value truth to spend a few days, and but a few days will be necessary, in examining the principles laid down in this work and applying them to their own individual cases before they join the herd of learned and unlearned in pledging their words to a false assertion. Viz, the V-I-Z, what does that mean? V-I-Z dot, I've seen it in plenty of writing, but I don't know if it's short for via V. I'm going to look it up. I hadn't taken the time to look it up before because I was simply too lazy. Or rather, I was just excited about getting started on filming. What does V-I-Z dot mean in writing? Viz is the abbreviation of the Latin word fidelicet, which means namely. Viz is a synonym for namely, or to wit, or that is to say. Okay, so I'll try to say namely, or that is to say, or in other words. Okay, wonderful. That is to say that astrology is an unfounded science. I think I'll use my iPad pencil because it looks better than my unmanicured hands. And sounds kind of nice too. Okay. If any man will take the trouble to examine for himself and should find that the prejudices of his education against the science of foreseeing the future and many other matters which it teaches are in reality well founded, and that it is, I don't know if I like this, it's too much noise, in pledging their words to a false assertion, that is to say that astrology is an unfounded science. If any man will take the trouble to examine for himself and should find that the prejudices of his education against the science of foreseeing the future and many other matters that which it teaches are in reality well founded, and that it has no claims to truth, then will he have the proud satisfaction of knowing that his opinions on a matter of some consequences are based on experiment and are a result of his own conviction, not of another person's assertion. So I guess he's saying, don't knock until you try it. See for yourself. And I do think that is true. I mean, I think that many different things should be explored. It is why, despite being an atheist agnostic, I studied religion in college. Comparative and world religions were always a fascination of mine ever since I first learned about them during a 6th grade social studies module or whatever. It was just so interesting to me, and it is really one of the many things that helped me realize that I didn't have to stick with the one belief system that I was born into. And this person also writes something about that it has no claims to truth. I'm not sure what it means in this context because I struggle when trying to understand writers from the 1800s. But it does make me think of how I would never call astrology a science. It does fit into the realm of pseudoscience, especially if you try to claim that it is provable or infallible, or, it's mostly usually right, even though it's not really working in this circumstance, so we'll just ignore that sort of thing. I just consider it an art. Then you don't have to try to prove that it's valid. You can just say, it's just an art. It's just an art. On the other hand, if he find truth flash with lightning force upon his mind and convince him that astrology, notwithstanding prejudice and abuse, is founded in nature and is indeed a noble science, that's the opposite of what I said. Notwithstanding prejudice and abuse, is founded in nature and is indeed a noble science given by a benevolent creator to enlighten man in his wanderings and enable him to shun the vice and folly which his passions throw in his path. Then will he, if a spark of piety exist within his breast, offer thanks to that creator for the blessing he has discovered. In either case, he must admit that I do him a service in putting forth this plain and simple means of discovering the truth. This is the age of inquiry, and yet prejudice continues to press down her leaden foot upon the neck of examination in this matter. Those damn enlightenmentists. Those damned enlightenment proponents, those skeptics and scientists who looked down upon the ancient art of astrology. I can only attribute the pitiable fact to the circumstance of there being no recent publications on those parts of astrology which are the most easily acquired. When did they say this was published? too. The mid-19th century was such a wild time for religious reawakening, which I guess is probably why it's called the Great Awakening or Great Reawakening, if I have the period of time correct in my mind, if I haven't gotten it confused. I know there's been a couple periods of great reawakenings. That was the time when people were becoming very, very interested in all forms of religious and spiritual belief. The Mormons, the Jehovah's Witnesses, other cults like that, all were developed around this time. Theosophy was becoming very popular, or was being created. There's a lot I can say about Theosophy, and it's really, I do have the secret doctrine. I think someone in my family bought it at one point purely for educational purposes. I'm 100% certain because of reasons, but it's the origin of what we understand today as the New Age movement, and it has some seedy ties to some great atrocities in history, especially in the 20th century. It's not that Blavatsky herself was necessarily of that persuasion, but a certain political and occult, which many people don't know about. Many people don't know about the occult underpinnings of the National Socialists of Germany. I don't want to shoot my channel in the foot too soon, but it is Theosophy that we have to thank and blame for much of the syncretism and appropriation that we have seen in the last century and a half in alternative spirituality circles. You know, when they take amalgamations of Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and just kind of like create a big stew of random religious beliefs. And there is a fine line between syncretism and appropriation. And I'm not going to get into it here, but what I will say is it's impossible in a growing world to keep strong, distinct lines between different practices, different cultures, different traditions, and a lot of people have taken the whole appropriation versus appreciation thing too far and have forgotten that appropriation refers especially to the profiting, social or economic, of misuse and watering down and misunderstanding of a culture and tradition outside your own, especially one that is of a marginalized identity. Sorry to bring that into a ASMR thing. The art of nativities, or natal charts, requires many years of patient experimenting before it can be well understood and practiced with certainty and satisfaction. That is highly validating because despite my decade or lifelong interest in astrology, I still cannot call myself an astrologer because I just don't think that I am equipped with enough knowledge and experience to call myself that. It's not a protected term, obviously, but I really would like to get back into the self-teaching, and I guess reading this is one of the ways I can do that, by looking a bit further into the past to see where today's astrology has come from. The art of atmospherical astrology and also that of mundane astrology alike demand much time to penetrate their arcana. One time when I was early in my exploration of my natal chart, I read something about one of my aspects. I think it was a Mercury aspect where it said, like, unfortunately, a lot of the things that you say might come off unintended, might come off in an unintentionally lascivious way. I don't think they used that word, but it like lewd way, and that's just the fact that I can't take the phrase penetrate their arcana seriously is probably evidence of that. Anyway, moving on. And a good education to follow their practice. Hence, we may account for their comparatively confined study. Few have either the abilities or the opportunity to wrestle with their difficulties. But Horary astrology, that could be another one of those words that come off in a way that's not intended. But Horary astrology, the chief subject in this work, may be speedily learned by any person of even moderate abilities, and may, as far as regards its elementary difficulties, be mastered in a few days' study. Alright. I do use Horary astrology when I try to find a lost object. I do find that is usually quite accurate. It may be well understood and reduced to constant practice in less than a quarter of a year, and no one will find himself at a loss for occasions to test its reality or its utility. For his own avocations and the affairs of his friends will offer these almost daily. If a proposition of any nature be made to any individual about the result of which he is anxious, and therefore uncertain whether to accede to it or not, let him but note the hour and minute when it was first made, and erect a figure of the heavens, and herein taught, and his doubts will be instantly resolved. That what it's saying, I believe, is that when you have a question, that is the time that you select when trying to figure out how to cast a chart. So when you lose something, you use the very moment that you wonder, oh, where is that thing, by the way? Rather than trying to guess, when you lost it. I think that's what that is referring to, but I'm not entirely certain. It could be referring to the event that is causing anxiety, but I don't know. We'll find out. He may thus, in 5 minutes, learn infallibly whether the affair will succeed or not, and consequently, whether it is prudent to adopt the offer made or not. If he examine the sign on the first house of the figure, the planet therein, or the planet of the ruling sign, or the planet ruling the sign, will exactly describe the party making the offer, both in person and character, and this may at once convince the inquirer for truth of the reality of the principles of the science. Moreover, the descending sign, that's another symbol that I came across a lot when first going through the first 2 chapters. It's the ampersand C period. I'm going to look that one up too. What does ampersand C mean? Etc. Oh, wonderful. That's what I thought. It's etc. Or and the rest. And the rest would make more sense here because it would be really silly to say the ascendant, etc. or the descending sign, etc. because no, I think he's referring to the descending sign, the planet therein, or the planet ruling the sign. So what he's saying is that the descendant the planets therein or the planet ruling the sign will describe his own person and character. Don't you love learning together? A farther proof of the truth of the science, if you require it. Here then is a ready test of the truth of astrology. Here's the thing, I would never try to convince someone that astrology is the truth because I don't believe in proselytizing. But here we are. Will its adversaries dare to make its application? It would, methinks, be better than relaxing the broad muscles which ever denote ignorance and surprise, the feelings which combined are the undoubted source of laughter, the only argument of the idiot, the ready resource of the ignorant. God, I love this. In editing this work, my chief object has been to render it useful to the student in astrology, and so, by forwarding the science to promote the general interests of humanity. I guess it worked, because here we are today. We have astrology memes galore, and channels like mine. With this view, I have rewritten those parts of the work which modern discoveries in astronomy and astrology have rendered obsolete. Tables for calculating nativities and a grammar of astrology are adjoined, and every ingredient of the science given which the student is likely to require. As regards the deviations I have made from the rules of the offer, they are few and founded upon much experience. I have omitted his chapters on nativities, as in that part of the science he was less perfect than in any other. The reason being that he relied on essential dignities which are, by my experience, of little, if any, avail. I love astrologers. They're always like, yeah, you can do it that way, but I do it this way, and I find it much more useful. It's just, I love inter-community infighting in astrology circles. The rules for calculating arcs of direction will be found in the grammar. In conclusion, I have no desire to offend any class of men by putting forth this work. I do not know whether I should not respect even prejudice for the sake of peace, were it not that I cannot conscientiously consent to abandon truth in the effort. I would respect your opinion, but respectfully, I think that you are an idiot. He's saying, I think, maybe I'm the idiot. I am callous to the puny efforts of critics who may desire to pour on me the waters of vituperation or ridicule, having already passed through a flood. After many years' experience, I have found the laws of astrology unfailing, and as I can discover no prohibition of its practice in the Word of God, I am prepared to defend it against all the foolish attacks of those who falsely declare that it upholds fatality. You know, the difference between free will and fatalistic approaches to fortune-telling and stuff. Or as opposed to the providence or the revelation of the deity. And I am contented with God's blessing to give up the ghost in the firm persuasion that, in maintaining what I believe is the truth in this respect, I shall meet hereafter, through the goodness of God and the merits of my Savior, with a merciful judgment. I am, reader, your devoted friend and well-wisher in all science which may honor God and benefit mankind. And that is the preface to an introduction to astrology by William Lilly, republished by Zadkiel in 1844? 1852. Of course, I was not right. 1852. And I think for now that is where I will leave it. There is a very, very long table of contents, and I can read it if so wish, if 3 people, if this video gets 1,000 likes, I will read the table of contents. I'm kidding. I know where I'm at in the YouTube sphere. If 3 people tell me that they would be willing to listen to me read the table of contents of the introduction to astrology, I will do it. So I will end it here, and I think that I will post very shortly after this the life of William Lilly, which comes before the first chapter of the original amended text. And I chose a good time to end because my cat just used the litter box in the other room, and you can hear him scratching and tapping away as if he wants to be an ASMR artist as well. Anyway, I hope that you are able to find relaxation, sleep, whatever it might be, maybe some arcane knowledge. And please, if you're still here, give this video a like. Leave a comment letting me know what you liked about the video. And I know already what I can improve on, but just be nice to me, okay? I'm just using a phone. I'll see you later.